I'll say go and do it 1 or 2 years, 3 years. But you need to know what's the outcomes you want to get. And do not be bitter about if you don't get to where you are, because you're better than where you actually started 3 years ago, and you're richer for the experience.
Welcome to the One Day at a Time podcast, where we take things one day at a time. Today in the studio, we have Gerald from Geek Culture.
Hi, thanks for having me
Hey
here.
Gerald, can you do a quick introduction about yourself?
Myself, well, I'm Gerald from Geek Culture. I've been running this lifestyle website for quite long already. I think we are in our 10th year this year. And pretty much we cover pretty much everything like tech, toys, video games, and entertainment. So that's pretty much the 4 key pillars that we do. And I would like to say that I have fun every day, but you can't always get by with fun. You actually need to have some edge or some point of view when it comes to covering the stuff that we do.
Right, so it's been a decade since you started Geek Culture.
Yes, has a website actually. Yeah.
Nice. Okay, so I don't know if you get asked this question, but why specifically geek culture? Why not like nerd culture or something?
I think at that point of time, actually has a background in training, right? I come from a marketing side. So it's very good for SEO.
Okay, so you did your. I love it when people like think through the thing rather than just like whack any name that you feel like works and things like that. Okay, so Geek Culture was born because you did some SEO research and you thought searchable term.
Searchable term, I think is great. Very umbrella term, covers a lot of things, and I think it has a lot of legs to it. And most importantly, it was available.
Right.
Yeah, so that's how we got into it.
So Geek Culture is essentially started off as like a publication, almost like a blog kind of thing, where you cover anything from like stuff that you probably are interested in, like tech and geeky stuff.
Yes.
And I believe like today, I watch your videos and stuff. Yeah, it has kind of grown to like a multimedia video and like article sort of platforms, and you're on like Twitch, TikTok, Instagram, like basically everywhere and you put out different types of content on different platforms that mainly engages audiences that are keen on geeky stuff.
Yep.
Right. So what made you, 10 years ago, you mentioned you were in marketing. What made you decide to be like, hey, I'm gonna start this Geek Culture website thing?
Interesting was back in the day, it was more like Facebook was very big. And Facebook pages were like blowing up. These days, I don't see that same level of explosion when it comes to growing any new social media channel, because there's just too many.
Right.
I think people are quite overwhelmed these days. I just came in with an article looking at how Facebook threads or Instagram threads exploded, but right now I'm pretty sure it has gone quite quiet for most people. So when we started it was a Facebook page. We posted up memes just for the loss of it. I actually met my co-founder when I was selling video games. So that was my first job, selling video games at a store you guys might know, Tishan.
Oh shit! I still buy my stuff there.
So that's why I really learned social media marketing, or really applying what you learn from university into new mediums. And that's how I met my co-founder. We stayed in touch. Then he says, "Hey, let's start something together." And that's the genesis of it.
So you met your co-founder who was also working at Shishan?
No, he was a customer.
Oh, damn.
I remember this. He was wearing a Mega Man t-shirt. And if you played the game, right, not many people know Mega Man. You know him as the Blue Bomber. But he was wearing a t-shirt with an E-tank, a power tank. So that was something that I just said straight up to him, hey, nice t-shirt from Mega Man, right? Then yeah, I think once you know and you make that connection, it's much easier to have a conversation.
Right. It's like like if you know, then you, I see. So you met a co-founder, and at that time, I reckon you probably started out as like a do for fun thing, like you said, you basically just posted memes for the lols and all that. So at what point did you decide that, hey shit, people are like sharing the memes, people are like liking this thing, and this could potentially be something bigger than just memes for lols?
I think in that generation where Geek Culture was started, I'm not sure if most people know that we have actually seen quite a bit of shift when it comes to people consuming the different types of content. And back then it was blogs.
Yeah.
Blogs were very big. and blogs were very individualistic, so it's always down to one person.
Right.
So we thought that maybe something that is more a brand or identity that can have people that's a collective is much stronger and has much more longevity to it. So we started it as a website as opposed to a blog. Many people think a website has something very professional or not, but and we had the idea that we really had to go in very professional. We don't do like say first person. We used to do a lot of first person reporting, but we realized that hey, if we do it in a third person, it sounds more professional.
Right.
Yeah, accordingly. Right. So that's how we realized and we saw the opportunity. And we took it and we see how far it could take us.
I see. Would you say that like the reason why you could see this opportunity, even like down to the very basic thing of coming up with the name Geek Culture, is credited mainly to your marketing background? You understand how media flows at that time, you understand how revenue flows through the media, and therefore you understand that starting a blog might not really help you stand out. Like coming up with like a name like Nerd Culture might not be very searchable. That's why you chose Geek Culture. That's why you decide to position yourself as a publication rather than a regular blog.
Yeah, I would say in some ways, yes, that's the nice thing or the marketable thing to say, but honestly, I did it just out of fun.
All right.
And if you think about it, right, when you work in after my time at Xishan, I moved on to quite a few MNCs. You realize that sometimes in big companies, right, they don't let you try as much things as possible because of risk. And having a Geek Culture as a space, right? If you think about it, it's actually a sandbox where I can actually test a lot of theories and see if it actually flies. And if it actually flies, right, I know how to communicate and engineer initiative or marketing execution that will actually garner results. Yeah, so that was one aspect of it that I think was how I really wanted to explore Geek Culture. Yeah.
Right. Actually, I really like this. And I really relate to it as well, because I think I also started off doing marketing and everything, and I think the challenge with people who do marketing that go into media or whatever is that our society is very KPI driven. You look at all the cost per click and all the search terms and whatever, and sometimes in a very traditional corporate environment like you mentioned just now, we kind of get lost in the numbers and we forget why we're doing it in the first place. And I really like how you talk about when you started, even though there were considerations of like searchable terms and things like that, but it's mainly built upon your love for the topic that you are kind of putting out into the world. And I have a very strong belief that that we can only go so far with technical abilities, and if we are not, building everything upon the things that we love, right? We're gonna burn out at some point, and everything will just come crashing, lah.
It's actually true. The thing that I think we had a discussion earlier is that finding the people who can actually populate or to engineer or to power the machine that goes behind it. It's like the movie Inception. Ultimately, for someone to do what we do, you need to have a love for it. And it's your love and your interest that will help you power through every day, as opposed to looking at it just like a paycheck. If you're looking for a paycheck, right, guys, there's a lot more better ways to earn money.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so I really resonate with what you're saying here and what you're talking about, that, essentially you built this entire thing, you built an entire platform and team out of your passion and love for something. And even like many years ago, when you're first starting out as a marketing person, or even for myself and many people, I believe, who start businesses, like I keep hearing this thing, and people say like passion cannot feed you, kind of thing. But over the years, I don't know what your experience is. I hope you can share also. But my experience is that contrary to popular belief, right, at the end of the day, if you do it long enough, passion is the one that feeds you, not just financially, but also like emotionally, right? To be able to come to work every day and say that we love this shit, rather than to go into a job that we hate, but we make 20, 30K a month kind of thing, right? Like what is your experience with this? Do you feel like passion cannot feed you, or you feel like actually passion should always be the centerpiece?
Wow. I think it's really an answer that I can't answer for anyone else, honestly, because it's going to be a cop-out answer. I'm sorry. Because I think people always read books like you'll find your ikigai and all that, right? I find that a bit odd because these people tend to have the privilege of being able to find their passion and then still be paid well for it. And I recognize that not many people have such opportunities. And if you really want to do it and make your passion, you really have to give it your all, and you need to suffer for your craft in some ways. Suffer does not mean suffer comes in many ways actually. Do you sacrifice family time? Do you sacrifice your earnings? Do you sacrifice your health? So such things is a give and take, which is another cop-out answer. But yeah, even for myself, right, finding the cool thing to do every day, it's tricky because ultimately I'm a business owner and the real job is to pay salaries, pay rent. And do I do pick up jobs that might not resonate with our audiences? Is it just pay well? Right. There's many opportunities out there. If I were to say, if I show you my email, right, I'll say, do you want to do gaming? When gaming does not mean the same thing as a video game, but it's all about gambling, cryptos. The number of scams that we get through emails, the money is actually very exciting, but then the temptation of your reputation is what is at risk. Yeah.
So again, it's the balance. It's finding that balance.
Finding the right balance, and the real answer here is whether or not your passions can feed you. I'll say go and do it 1 or 2 years, 3 years. But you need to know what's the outcomes you want to get. And do not be bitter about if you don't get to where you are, because you're better than where you actually started 3 years ago, and you're richer for the experience.
Right.
Yeah.
Actually, I really like what you mentioned just now about like in the realm of like chasing dreams, chasing passion, you have to inevitably suffer for your craft. I actually really like that because I think for most of us that have suffered for our craft in some way. I never really thought of it that way, but I think you put it very nicely because from the outside looking in at people who are, say, creators, video creators, or like they make music, make like animation, like it seems very nice and fluffy that, we do what we love and then we make a living sort of thing. But a lot of people who have never tried doing this might have a misconception of how it is like. And when people do try, they realize that actually, it's a lot of sacrifice, a lot of hard work, it's like you say, family time and like time away from your partner. Maybe you gotta be, as a business owner, as somebody who is a creator, you gotta be replying to people, you gotta be like thinking of things that can generate revenue because you got stuff to pay, you got rent to pay. And it's not like all rainbows and unicorns and be like, yay, passion and stuff like that. So I really, really like it. And I think maybe this is something that can help quite a lot of people who are keen to enter the creative field, because I think a lot of people, like including my students and things like that, I see them give up because a lot of media paints being an influencer or video creator or like a blogger as something that is very exciting, very fun, and is all fun and games and things like that. But when you really enter the industry, you realize that, got a lot of admin work to do. Need to calculate my P&L, need to send invoice, need to, like think of how to kind of generate revenue from my interest. So it's actually a lot of hard work. And if going into it, maybe more people can understand like what you just summarized in very perfectly in 3 words, which is, to do this, you kind of have to accept that you gotta suffer for your craft a bit. But if you manage to kind of pull through that initial struggle, it's going to be a very sweet journey.
Yep.
Right.
For most creative people, they come in, or people who are non-creatives, it's because there's an entire system of structure on how to actually go about doing a job. The systems. But if you look at it, right, actually everyone is creative in their own way. Just that it's not seen in a very flashy entertainment type of approach. But I think in order to be consistent and to do things well over time, right, you need to have certain processes in place to ensure that, okay, I've done this before, maybe I can bring it up to maybe 85% of the way. Then that magic 15% is what makes it different, and you have to give it a shot. For any young person who is in the creative space, right, I was speaking to a friend recently. He also gave a talk in a school. If you aspire to be Mr. Beast, what makes you special also? And even though you find yourself special, right, is this something that the market actually wants? which is something that is very soul crushing to a young person to hear. And it's nothing wrong, you can actually do your own thing by the side. And if you really love it, right, it can become your eventual big thing. And that's how actually Geek Culture started. I was only able to go full time in 2021, which is very recent.
Right.
Previously, leading up to that, it was small business here and there, working it by the side, ensuring that at least one day got one article go up.
Right.
So, and many people see maybe the success at this point of time, but you don't see the beginnings of it and the genesis of it all. And it's a lot of survivorship bias as well.
Yeah. And also at the same time, it's kind of like what you mentioned just now, which is that if it's something that you like to do, like maybe it like for you, it obviously took years, like eight years or so to really even transit to doing this like as your full-time gig, right? And if you weren't, you were able to kind of do this full-time, but even if you weren't, the rewards of, being able to do this in the first place is sometimes for most of us enough that allows us to keep going to do it, right?
Yeah, that's very true. And essentially think about it as your hobbies. Some people say if you do, hobbies should just remain hobbies. But unfortunately, I've made my hobby my full-time thing, which can be a bit tiring because you're looking at it from a different lens now. And to the point where when people go into the creative field, right, they say, oh, suddenly I have to grapple with numbers and admin and processes, right?
Right.
That's what pays the bills. Being professional about it.
Yeah. So again, it's finding that balance, right? Between like, this is my passion, this is what I want to do versus but it needs to I need to view it from a different lens so that the passion can actually generate revenue so that I can put food on the table, pay my mortgage or whatever, and that kind of thing. So actually, I'm quite curious to know because geek culture has evolved quite a bit since you first begin the whole like publication thing. Now you do multimedia content. And I also think that the general demeanor and general view of what being a geek has also evolved over the years. I remember like many years ago when you're into like computer games and you're into like anime and things like that, you were basically not cool lah.
Ostracized.
Yeah, you were like the uncool kid and things like that, like anime, what the heck, right, and stuff like that. But these days, seems like everybody is a geek to some degree, right? Everybody watches freaking anime. Everybody plays games. Everybody plays like I don't know anything, right? Like Mobile Legends, Pokemon Go, like and like the whole rise of like collectibles, with all the big
you collect
names.
Pokemon cards, right?
Yeah, I mean, I do. Yeah. Like all the big YouTubers like Logan Paul, like buying up like cards. And it's not just Pokemon cards, like literally any of these collectible like basketball cards and whatever. Like it seems like the general demeanor towards what being a geek has changed. And it also seems like you managed to catch this wave because in the beginning when you first started, the geek community was like that.
Yep.
But now it's like that. Like half the world are geeks. Everybody watches freaking Demon Slayer. Everybody plays, like everybody's trying to get that old Sega console to play that, like Sonic or whatever. Yeah. So do you feel like this is something that you foresaw? Or you again didn't really think much. You just went into it and you managed to capture like from like a niche audience. You managed to capture more of a general audience now.
Do I give a long answer or do I give a short answer?
Whatever you feel like.
I don't think I was saying I foresaw it. I don't have a crystal ball. I just do the things that I enjoy, and I believe that this creates like a more magnetic personality where people with similar interests you will start to attract them. And it so happened that people who play video games from a generation going up, right, are in the working world right now. They need marketing done. They're a brand that they love. So happens that they understand the same language and there's a common love. That's why one of the things that I like to do when I travel, especially for work, right, I like to visit comic book stores, toy stores. I've done an extensive guide on Akihabara, where it's telling people where to check out the cooler stuff if you have minimal time. A geek in Japan, a geek in India, a geek in US, a geek in Singapore, they're actually all the same. It's all the shared love for a common interest that brings them together. So if I were to say, if I foresaw this, I would say no. It's very hard to put this together, because even at the time when I started Geek Culture, there were a lot of international websites that really cover such topics already. And so what is my value add when I'm coming into such a space? I think that's the key that I'm always or constantly asking the team, asking myself, how do I add to the conversation on this space? So no, I wouldn't say so, but it did help when I think about it. Crunchyroll used to be a pirate site.
Yes.
Right now it's legit many times over.
Yes.
And people used to go there for anime, and even for yourself, anyone out there who watched Naruto when you're younger, you will queue multiple videos or 1 out of 30, and then so many of the tabs that are open. I think that is the experiences that you go through, and eventually, if you really love something, and I'm very heartened to see it, that we are in a very good space right now. And am I getting all the rewards of it? I'll say, yeah, in a way. At least I have a track record of stuff we have covered. And my point on this question here is, in some ways, because so many people are actually doing it right now, this has become a rather prestige industry. Prestige meaning many people actually think they can do it, and that creates a lot more competition. Yeah.
But you were in some way, kind of say, fortunate enough that you started this quite early, right? So in some way, you had like the first mover advantage, in a sense where you already, people who just got into it, say like creating content like for Geeks and like this kind of thing, they still have yet to walk that journey of understanding the community, understanding each content pillar, as you very, very clearly mentioned. You got 4, that you clearly state out, but you have done that, and you are, as the leader of Geek Culture with your team, able to kind of spearhead certain conversations because you already understand what the community is like. Which do you think that is the value that you provide as Geek Culture? Because I mean, I don't know. I'm purely saying this based on what I read from your website, and I watch your videos from time to time and stuff. And what you're saying, right? I feel like this is what really differentiates Geek Culture from a lot of the newer content creators when it comes to, like gaming content or like tech content and things like that, because you have a very, very good grasp on the general idea of the audience, and you also have a very good grasp on the topic. It allows you to quickly pick up on things that people want to see, want to hear, and you also resonate with. And it allows you to kind of be like a market leader of some sorts, because you already have 10 years of experience in doing that. Do you feel like that is what Geek Culture is?
I wish we were in a better place, but it's tricky because these days there's just so much content out there.
Yeah.
And you can always find a slice of what you're looking out for. When you're searching for something like, say, the latest Blue Beetle that's coming out. Tonight we have our movie screening. If you were to go to YouTube and you search Blue Beetle, and you search maybe a review, what is the opportunities I'm able to actually insert into that space? Sometimes someone actually will do it better than me. And do you say I'm a market leader? No, but I'll say people come to us more for a good general sense, that they can look at an article, share with friends, and have a discussion with them.
Right.
That way is a very good starting point for you going into this rabbit hole of content. I'll say, as long as I can become, let's say, 1 of 5 or 1 of the 3 content pieces they are reading about topic, I'm okay already. I'm good enough for that.
Right. Yeah. So Geek Culture, in some way, is more like a generalist platform, right? And you don't exactly specialize in, say, anything like Warhammer. Some people just make Warhammer content. Some people just make like Pokemon content. Some people just specifically make content that is related to, I don't know, car racing games and stuff like that. But for Geek Culture, you cover not too much depth, but a lot of breadth. So it almost acts like a taster to what this community can offer, and maybe people discover this whole thing via your platform and they go on to consume other people's content, but you were there to introduce the thing to them, right?
Actually, that's pretty much spot on. I can't go into depth because it would not be a benefit to the general audience when it comes to something like this. And yes, there's a specialist, and I'll say ours is more of a generalist. Generalist in the sense that even if the specialist were to read it, right, they'll know, okay, this guy knows what he's talking about.
Right.
But I cannot write it in a way, right, because I don't want, the number one rule that I tell the team, right, is don't be a gatekeeper. And this comes from an era where you were ostracized for being a geek.
Yeah.
And then why would I want to perpetuate such stereotypes? Now that I have a website, I really want to welcome more people into the fold. Even for my side, right? Let's talk about, you play Pokemon cards, mainly as a collector. And also, I'm more into, let's say, Magic the Gathering. For me, myself, is I want to welcome more people and get them to play the game. But do I go about and create a video of me playing the game with friends? It's a different level of commitment. And it's going to be very interesting to that narrow group of people. But I really want to bring in more people. Let's say if you enjoy Lord of the Rings, come and try Magic the Gathering because they did a crossover.
Right.
So that's why I'm really encouraging people from varied interests to come in and see what else is there to explore within a space itself. Yeah.
Right. So in some ways, geek culture is merely a facilitator. You're just there to be like, hey, there's this thing, you want to try? Kind of thing, right?
I like to think that more like a more master poisoner.
Okay.
Enticing you to buy the coolest and the greatest stuff.
Oh, I do. You're into Magic, is it?
Yes.
Oh, Magic is one of the most expensive card games to play, collect, and it is quite insane.
It is very intimidating, and it's something that something I've been trying to get new players in. And there's many other card games also out there, and I think many people are, especially if you are Singaporean, right? You go in and you think of it from a dollar perspective. Can you earn enough money? But honestly, right, like I say, work a good job, buy the things that you want. I think that is a much more saner approach to something like this. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I really like it. I mean, the whole reason why we like work is because we want to be able to live the life we want to live, right? And maybe buying cards is just the life I want to live, kind of thing, right?
But ultimately, if you're saying buying cards, right, the things that we actually do, I do a lot of, is also in tech, in the space of tech. And tech can be, look at this space that we have here. I came in and I could comment, wow, nice lighting.
Right. Because you know
such things. But how do I translate this into the audience that really wants to get into it? I cannot overwhelm them with jargon, but I can tell them what is this purpose is it for, and how do you want to get into it. And then even for myself, I'm a super generalist. I don't take the best photos, but I try my best. At least I know how to get to where I want to do. Then maybe a specialist needs to come in to help me out. Even buying cameras these days, right? People are just, I think most consumers, right, when people ask me or ask us for recommendations, I just have a few names at the top of my mind. Because the most important thing is, I don't want to be your customer service or your tech support. We do that for, let's say, our parents in general, but I really want to be helpful. But I think the important part is knowing the starter step where you're going for when it comes to tech. And that's why when you have a lot of varied experience for us at Geek Culture, right, it's easy for me to make the recommendations because we've walked that step. And I want you to really enjoy it and not be overwhelmed. Yeah.
Okay, so just now you were talking about your skill set being more of a generalist rather than a specialist. I'm actually quite curious that, because when you first started out as Geek Culture, you made memes and then you kind of transitioned into this whole publication thing where you wrote articles, I assume SEO powered articles to kind of reach people, and then you started making multimedia content, horizontal, vertical, short form, long form, everything just go. I am quite curious about your thoughts to AI and content creation, because these days, you can pay for like GPT-4 and get it to write you a SEO article on like a topic and whatever. And of course, we have not progressed to a level, I think, with language AI models where it can kind of imbue that human touch. Like what you talk about just now is very nuanced, right? Like the AI model might generate you like a whole rabbit hole of in-depth thing that you don't want your brand to represent. But do you feel like AI in your pillar in your niche, right, of like writing geek content, making geek videos, is something that will be very helpful to you going forward, or do you see it as a threat?
Wow. AI in general, this is a very, do I answer in a question that makes me sound like
A geek.
a geek, or is it someone who fears technology? I forgot the actual word. There is an actual word for that. But
maybe like your thoughts as somebody who, as a business owner and okay, because I think the crux here is that if AI is doing everything for you, then like why are you even doing this in the first place? You started out because you wanted to read and write about like geeky stuff, right? So like with AI, it can replace some, maybe not all, but some of the work that you're doing right now.
See, that question comes from a place of business, marketing, and cost.
Yeah.
I don't think AI can replace the fun in it. And sometimes we do things just for the laws.
Yes.
And that's where the laws is where I think is where I do what I do. And that cannot be replaced through an AI. I can tell you this is what you can actually buy, this is what you need to do, but you need to have the live and breathe experience to know that humans are actually very irrational. They don't perform and do the things that you actually want them to do the way they want to do it. So will AI replace what we do? Yes, possibly, sure, down the line, but you're going to get very vanilla stuff. And I think being humans and being itchy and being curious, right? There's always going to be a constant refresh of ideas and concepts that AI can be trained on, but you might not be able to be in a sustainable manner. That's my thoughts on that. And if I'm using AI right now, yeah, in some ways we are looking at it. In some ways, think about it. Marketing times, you had tools where it's people tell you this is your best piece of content. I'm pretty sure there's some AI behind it, and it helps you get to where you need to go faster, but it still needs that human touch to do the finishing steps to make it unique and special. And I think humans in general, we do know and can discern quite well if this thing is just generated for SEO purposes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then again, it comes back to the topic or the theme of the conversation seems to be like a balance.
Yeah.
Right. Because like you're saying that AI, you're not like against AI or anything. In fact, AI probably is a topic that you kind of touch on in geek culture.
I'll just say go with the flow. If this is the flavor of the month, right? Like Marvel movies, they've been a flavor of the month for very long already. People are saying that there's some level of fatigue right now. And maybe more art house, Wes Anderson type of I'll say Wong Kar-wai type of movies will come back into action. It's just really phases that we are seeing just go through. It happens with fashion as well. And I don't think, especially, and this is all about the culture game where everything is cyclical. So I think what is important is knowing how to use the tools at hand and using AI as a tool and being able to achieve your goals is perfectly fine. Yeah.
So would you say that you, like with the rise of AI and all that, you would kind of like work together with your team to try to integrate AI into your workflow just to continue to have that human touch, but also help you speed things up a little bit maybe, or like basically like what you said, use the tools to your advantage lah. Would you consider doing that or?
I wish I could if there was a tool, but they all are so
sparse.
Not sparse. These are engineers who are creating what people or creators actually want. But I think the best tools that I've seen these days, right, is being able to take a 16:9 video and make it into a vertical where you crop out everything, is all done. That one speeds up a lot of time. But the picking of the actual content, right, the AI has no idea also.
Yeah, absolutely. So like even for this podcast, right, a lot of people always ask us like, hey, why don't you just use like AI like Opus or whatever to just cut your TikTok and whatever? Because we do it manually lah. But we realized that, I mean, sure, there are software and AI out there that can cut things, very nicely, do all your like caption and whatever. Correct. But the topics that they pick to feature, right, just don't make sense to us.
It doesn't make sense. I mean, guys, off the camera here, there's a poor chap who's monitoring this. Even for me when I stream, right, I can't expect my editor to actually scrub through 2 hours, 8 hours of stream. Because when I stream something called RL in real life, which I think is much more fun than me sitting at the desk and playing video games.
Right.
And then I can see things and interact stuff. It gives me more to talk about. At least I can scream to chat and say, "Hey guys, please clip this." Clip this meaning is an entire video. They'll capture about 30 seconds of it.
Right.
And this serves as bookmarks for me to use as material to actually refer to. And if we didn't have a human behind it, right, to capture this, I don't think an AI at this point of time can do so. Yeah.
Hey, actually, that's a genius idea. Hey, please keep this. Yeah, I mean, that's smart because we do scrub through like content and to just try to find that 1 minute of like very, very nice thing to put as highlights on social media and things like that. And unfortunately, AI hasn't really evolved to a place where it can do that for us.
I think it will eventually, but it needs to have enough data points to train it also, which is tricky. And I can't be a predictor of how it could or look like, as opposed to looking at things like Ready Player One, where it's a future that that is actually very dystopian. But I am hopeful that the people who are guiding this process are able to steer it accordingly. Yeah.
But do you think essentially when it comes to more traditional forms of content like writing articles and things like that, say today someone were to start like a geek culture copy or something like that, and they just generate 10 articles a day with like a language model or whatever, and they just like SEO the whole thing, just go. Do you think it will grow very fast, or do you think because of the lack of human element, it might not would pan out?
I welcome that competition.
Nice.
And I've seen many competitors come through, and I think this year might be the time where once the tide goes out, you'll see who has been swimming naked.
Oh, wow. You are, the way that you're describing it is very on point. Okay. No, I really like it.
Yeah. So sometimes I feel that these days, even for myself, I think it's always a constant evolution. And even for me, I feel so out of place in TikTok in some ways. And it's not because I feel out of place because I'm old or something. It's because I've not spent enough time on it. And whether or not I can shift my brand accordingly to suit the taste of the audience at that point of time. And maybe I'm giving this a bit away too much of the mantra of how I approach it, but I have to adapt content for audiences accordingly to the platform, and it has to be as native as possible. And as a content creator yourself, right, you know how tedious that actually is to do it to a very high degree. So most of the times we do take shortcuts, but it takes an army to actually do this, and someone who really loves a brand. And I have no scalable solution. Right. If anyone out there has...
me too. Hey, please. I also need that.
I'll be happy to have conversations with you to see if that is something possible.
Yeah. I mean, kind of like going back to what you said, right? I mean, it's built upon passion, and sometimes you gotta suffer a bit for a craft. Yeah. Which again boils down to all these things like you're talking about, like the, like clip this, and like it's a lot of human touch to it, right? And the human touch is sometimes a bit clunky. It's not always the most efficient way to do it, but sometimes it just requires that human touch. It's probably why people still watch your content, read your content.
I'm quite happy if there is, like, say, a good community. I do think there is a good community. We do have a constant. If I didn't post anything for maybe 3 days, right, our numbers will still be okay. There's still a baseline of things that people will look at. Being able to find the right person behind this is also a trickier part, because even these days, I spoke to someone, okay, do you play video games? Then, I play video games. And it's mostly, I only play mobile games. Then mobile games, you might be so sucked into maybe playing a lot of boyfriend simulator games or Genshin Impact that you have very narrow in your interest. But yes, you do it in general, but there's so much more in the world out there. I think that's why when you come to geek culture, that's why I'm trying my best to offer. Yeah.
Nice. The breadth. Yeah. And like basically like a taster pack.
Yeah.
Nice. Thank you so much for coming down and sharing your whole journey with geek culture, and of course your views on essentially what it means to create content, in the modern age where things are so different from 10 years ago. If anybody is watching the podcast or listening to the podcast and they haven't really discovered geek culture, where can they find you guys online?
Right now, geek culture is in many places, but most primarily we are on geekculture.co, and that's our website. From there, you can find us on TikTok, you can find us on Twitch. Not very active these days, but our YouTube and our website are one of the more exciting places to check out our content.
Nice. Okay, thank you so much for coming down to the studio, Gerald. And I had a really lovely conversation with you. And I will clip that later with JM behind the camera. And thank you so much for watching the One Day at a Time podcast. And we'll see you next time. Peace.